Hello and welcome back to the channel. Yesterday had some interesting questions for the council to ask. This was in a letter that one of my viewers has apparently sent to the council. He then said he's had a reply, and I'd like to read that to you. He's very happy for me to do so. Of course, I've taken away anything that identifies not only the individuals concerned but the council as well, which I think is right and proper. And also I've had another email from somebody else who sent me a cutting from an internal government magazine, I think, which is giving us some information about the state of local government and whether the employees are slightly concerned or not about their managers. But before that, I just want to say one thing about the opinions that are expressed in these videos that I produce, and indeed the opinions or advice given by my guests. One of the things about the freedom movement, the truth movement that I have inadvertently fallen into is that it's very important to have discussions. Whether these are accurate, whether they're true, I cannot tell you. I don't have a production team. I don't have researchers. I can only take my guests or the information that comes to me at face value. And I believe that my audience has the integrity to work it out for themselves. They're not stupid. I don't think that you're daft, and that if somebody says jump, you don't say how high, you ask whether you should or not. And I just say that because occasionally I do get emails from people saying, please don't have such and such a guest on your show, or you shouldn't have had so and so on your show because they're giving false information. And I have no idea about that. As I say, I think it's very laudable to have all sorts of different opinions. And if you censor people, then you're just sending stuff underground. And so it's easier to have it up front. Having said that, let's have a look at what bits and bobs have been sent in, and you can make up your mind whether they're genuine or not. And you should question everything, of course. So the first thing here is this cutting from an internal document, apparently within the government, that says there's a study that reveals a worrying state of local government leadership. It says here that just over half of council leaders and managers believe their local authority isn't ensuring accountability for failure, at an alarming new study has revealed. Research, let's just pop up here a bit, research from the Social Marketing Foundation, or Social Market Foundation, has painted a worrying picture of the state of leadership and management across the local government. Drawing on survey findings and testimonies from senior managers and leaders, the study found that 1 in 5 council leaders, that's 20%, believe their senior leadership is ineffective. Around 40% said their senior leadership was also poor at motivating staff or failed to do so at all. And over half, that's 56%, reported that their organisation wasn't ensuring accountability for failure, and just under 70% reported that there were critical obstacles to them doing their jobs. So it does seem that there's a lot of disgruntled people within local councils. And I wonder if that's anything to do with the amount of people who perhaps are questioning the legality of the council tax. Now, there may be a number of people writing in letters that they've got to sort of deal with. We've seen that that on certain websites of councils they say, oh, you can't use the freedom of the land argument, which suggests that maybe you can and they just don't want you to do that, or that they're trying to be helpful and say, actually, we get a lot of this and it doesn't really work, which, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, maybe it's just getting too close to the truth, seeing as it does appear to a number of people, including myself, to be not working lawfully, let's say. So I have had a letter come back from my correspondent from yesterday who says this was a response from the council. So I'm going to read a little bit of that to you now, and you can make up your own mind if this seems a genuine response from a council. It does appear so to me. I've got rid of all the names and address, the personal information, so we don't identify what it is or who it's from, as it were. And also the English in this does seem to be dashed off rather quickly, so none of it doesn't always make a lot of sense. So it says here, the questions you raise, I think that means you raised, the concerned arguments that you have no basis in law and have never been successful in the courts, and in no respect affect your council liability or indeed your obligations to make payments for your council tax. Anyone who withholds payment will have recovery action taken against them, so please seek proper legal advice rather than relying on guidance provided by statements made on internet forums which may be misleading or factually inaccurate. And just on that basis, of course, anybody just relying on anything on the internet is probably going to be misguided. They need to think about it and do some research, of course, to see whether they think that's true or not. I have no problem with that. And I think anybody who listens to any of my stuff would also be advised to do their own due diligence, of course. However, it does go on. It says you do not need to have a signed legal contract agreeing to be liable for council tax. Why so? The Local Government Finance Act 1992, which they trot out all the time, determines council tax liability. It says it determines it, but what does that really mean? And it sets out a council's rights to demand payment of council tax. Now, let me just stop there for a minute. So, something that's been decided by a bunch of people in government, this is what they're saying, it seems to me, have decided that they can demand money from you. It doesn't really mean you have anything. I mean, it could be any amount of money. It just says that people in government can demand money from you. I mean, if you take that down to its logical conclusion, it seems to be what it's saying, that we make the rules and we'll just demand it from you. At what point is that actually true, that anyone can demand anything else from you that you've not agreed to, that you're not a party of? This is where I think we get to the bit where, hang on a second, what do you mean by that? And it's still not very clear. They all just say, oh, but it says it in legislation, so therefore it's true, which means that, well, the government could just, they don't need a court, do they? If the government just can make up any old rule and say, well, we just demand it, you don't need to be adjudicated by that. Well, why can't you pay it? We've just made it up. You can pay it. You will pay it. And if you don't pay it, you're going to be fined, or we're going to take away your possessions, or we'll send you to prison. It effectively says you don't need the courts to make the decision because they've already made that decision. We've got the legislation. You've got to pay come what may. Doesn't matter what the mitigating circumstances, because we've just basically made the rules up because we are dictators. That's how it reads to me. You might read that differently. Let's see what else it says. Your liability for council tax is not dependent on and does not require your consent or an existence of a contractual relationship with the council. Is that really true? Any such assertion to the contrary is incorrect, and there is no legal base upon which to make this argument. So basically, again, it's just saying we are dictating the terms. We are dictating that if you are born into this country and you have a house, we have made the decision that you will pay us money. There is no alternative whatsoever. That's how it is. You're not free, you're a slave. That's basically how that reads to me. You, of course, may determine that differently, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on that. It goes on. There's a lot to this. I won't read the whole thing. A liability order, and this is where they admit it. A liability order, here we are at the top here. A liability order hearing is a bulk hearing in which a list of all taxpayers summoned for the non-payment of council tax are presented to the court. The hearing is not listed by each individual. The court will likely record the relevant court session as so-and-so county council liability order hearing, or similar. If you have concerns about the records of court, you should contact them directly. Such queries should not be directed to the council. It's weird that, isn't it? Because you have to go to the council to get to know whether you can actually go to the court, because I've seen that, and we've seen that on other of these so-called summonses. So now suddenly they're going, oh, well, you have to go to the court, don't deal with us anymore. Which is, again, it's a very strange system. If the court, which should be completely independent from the claimant, which is what the councils would be, they should be completely independent and have nothing more to do with it. And they will have, whoever is up before the beak will have the judgment given to them in their presence. How can a judge tell any individual whether they've got a liability order or not if they are not present, which they are just on a list? How do you know you're even on the list that is presented? How do you know that your name has been read out? How do you know any of those things are happening if you are not there? And if there are, as they suggest, has been suggested, that thousands of people are on this list, they can't possibly be all crammed into the court, and the judge cannot give a proper fair hearing to each and every individual in their case. I mean, it is a nonsense, isn't it? But this is what they're hanging everything on. Right, so where are we going here with all of this? We do, however, send a request for information form following the granting of a liability order by the magistrate to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to make a realistic and affordable payment arrangement in preference to escalation to further recovery action and additional costs, and all of that. Anyway, it goes on, and all of the main crux is there. They're holding on to the this idea of the Government Finance Act of 1992 to say some people in smoke-filled rooms have decided that you will pay, and if you don't, that's it. You'll basically have the enforcement officers come round, take your possessions, or you go to prison. That does seem to be the crux of it, which is not a system that I want to live in. How is any other person, any other man or woman above you, unless you've consented to it or you've agreed to it? And I would like to know where that consent comes. But anyway, be interested in your response to any of this. Do make a thing in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you next time.